Hey guys, welcome back to another recap. Today's day 2 of the British Chess Championship. I was with the white pieces today and I managed to win. I'd like to share my game today. So, it was a very interesting game. I was playing with FIDE Master Stephen Dishman. I played with Stephen before a couple of years ago at the European Club Cup. It was my first Club Cup then. And I don't know, I think I said it in my previous round 1 video, where I defended a rook bishop versus a rook endgame. So today was going to be my day. So I was with the white pieces. Previously I was playing on the black side, and I should say the venue and the surroundings are just amazing. After the game I did a lot of kind of recorded myself there and took some amazing pictures. But anyways, coming back to the game. So I was with the white pieces. I went d4 and Stephen played d5, c4. And here Stephen plays 2 openings. Primarily he plays the Queen's Gambit accepted and the Slav defense. So I was preparing for both of them. I was mostly expecting Slav from him. Solid choice. Knight c3, knight f6, e3. And here he played bishop f5. And now knight f3 would transpose to the main Slav lines, pardon me. Here, I went for a very interesting sideline, which was employed by Grandmaster Bahram Maghsoodleh from Iran twice at the 2022 Chennai Olympiad, f3. The idea of f3 is kind of to play g4 and h4, and here it's Black's easiest way to kind of dodge everything is just to play h5, and here we get a Slav position where I believe that Black should be actually more than equal here. But yeah, it's hard to expect f3 with is threatening g4. And I think Stephen took his time here, definitely wasn't aware of this idea. e6 and now g4. And I was really happy to see this on the board, even though e6 is not a bad move, but it's very fun for white to play this kind of all the pawn moves. Like out of my 7 moves, what, d4, c4, e3, f3, g4, and h4. Oh my god, it's 6 moves out of 7 with only pawn moves. h6, knight e2. Another line is to play h5, kind of stopping h5 immediately, but after g5 the knight kind of needs to go back and white can start kind of attacking on Black's position. So what happened was h6, knight e2, bishop d6, and knight f4. And it was funny that this type of positions you would see in a Jabava, but the bishop would be gone by this stage. However, here the bishop still remains, and that's what we were talking about after the game. Me and Stephen were discussing that this position resembles a lot to these Jabava positions where white has the bishop on f4 already, and white has the option to play e takes f4, which is kind of an interesting idea. But here I have a bishop instead of a knight, and Stephen was trying to figure out the differences here, and he felt that at some point I might play c5, so I think he went, d takes c4, bishop takes c4, and it looks a very odd looking structure for white because d4 is an isolated pawn and there isn't much breaks for both sides. However, I have a very important break. I might play f5, and as you can see, after knight bd7, queen e2, I'm threatening this deadly f5 move, attacking the e6 pawn and the g6 bishop. Queen e7, putting cover on the e-file. I went king f2, so I wasn't sure exactly where to keep my bishop. Ideally I wanted to keep it here, but I wanted to keep the pressure going, so I went king f2, knight b6, bishop b3, and here knight d5. And this was an interesting moment because I started to take time here. I was out of book and I was trying to figure out how should I play, and as you can see, Stephen took a lot of time in the opening, and understandably, because this is a very new position already. I'm not sure when I was checking my notes if this was played or not, but I had this on my analysis board, but I didn't go further than this. So here I was thinking, I can't really contest these knights, and at some point I need to trade them off, but I might as well try to increase my space advantage, and this a4 move really proved useful. So after a5, here I made an important decision to trade off the knight. I thought to play bishop d2 in the hope that after castling I could play knight takes d5, knight takes d5, and bishop takes a5, but I wasn't sure after knight takes f4, and white could get an exchange, but it doesn't really look good, especially when this knight is really strong on d3. I didn't really calculate this, but I thought it didn't look that great, so I thought I'll just chop off all the knights on the board and hope for a slightly better opposite color bishop endgame. So I went bishop takes d5. Let's go here. Bishop takes d5, knight takes d5, and knight takes d5. And this was a very important position. How should black recapture the knight? E takes d5 or c takes d5? Well, I thought c takes d5 was more natural because it kind of opens the file for the rook, and the bishop still is very active over here. But I think this Stephen was probably not sure with b3. This was my idea. The problem is black cannot castle. Bishop a3, and then I win. White wins the rook or the exchange. And if queen f6, which looks like I'm getting out of this pin, but the problem is now I could play f5 and queen takes d4 check. I have bishop e3 and it's a double attack. So therefore bishop h7, and I was trying to make this work. Bishop a3, queen takes d4, and king g2, and I think white should be winning here. I don't know. I think white is winning probably at this point. So I was hoping for this, but I felt that was solid. But after knight takes and e takes from Stephen, I was starting to think, because I didn't expect this. Why? Because after queen takes, and I can play f5 and completely shutting down this bishop. And here I had a very natural move like rook e1 check, but I thought this is black's weakness. So let me threaten that before making very natural looking moves. So I went rook a3, which also complements that I could play rook e3 at some point. King d7, rook b3. And now this is where things get interesting. I thought the only move for black is to play rook a7, and then what happens, I'll come back to the game. But here I think the problem is it's not easy for black to defend this pawn. The most natural looking rook hb8 would be which would fail to bishop f4, and then the rook has to move, and then I win the pawn. So, and also if the king moves, again, I can give a check probably. The king goes back, and now this is the point. My rook comes here on the 7th rank, and it's game over. So it's important for black to keep control on this e7 square and also protect the b7 pawn. So naturally he had to use his rook a7, and now here I worked on the e file. The problem was if I've gone rook e1 now, rook e8, and if I capture, king takes, or sorry, I should say maybe the rook takes, rook b3, and the king nicely comes here, and I think it's slightly better for me, but I think black, the worst is over for black. But with this move, rook b3 and rook a7, now I'm going to play rook e1. Now the point is, after rook e8, which happened in the game, I captured, king takes, and now it's white to play, guys. You could pause the video and just share how should white win a pawn. Well, I hope you took your time, and here it's just bishop f4, threatening bishop b8, and the rook doesn't have enough squares, and the b7 drops. King d7, bishop b8, rook a8, and here I was very careful. I didn't fall for rook takes b7 check, because after king c7, then oopsie daisy, though it's still very complicated after rook takes f7, rook takes b8, rook takes g7. I was calculating this, but I felt it wasn't necessary. But I think this should be winning, I guess, for white too. But I went for the most simple way, which was bishop e5, rook a7, and then king g3, and Stephen resigned because I was threatening king f4 and then slowly pawn push, and it's kind of over. So that was a nice game. The endgame play was, I think, almost perfect from my side. Yeah, I'm not sure where Stephen exactly went wrong. I didn't check the engine too. I like to kind of analyze without the engine. So probably I would say maybe a5 was maybe not the best. Actually, I was wondering during the game, is h5 a possibility? With the point that after a5, knight takes, pawn takes, and then knight d5 here. Probably this would have been more interesting, though. Bishop a3, queen f6. I'm not sure. It's a complicated position. Though I expected this to be a really long game, but I never thought it would finish that quickly. So it was just how many moves? 28 moves game. So that was a nice game. I was really pleased with the win. So tomorrow I'm playing on the top boards. I'm playing with newly crowned Grandmaster Amit Ghazi. I played him at the British Rapid Championship early this year. I lost with him with the white pieces, so it's going to be an interesting fight tomorrow with the black pieces on board 2. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Thanks for watching this video and keep following me. Thank you. Bye bye.